Joining me right now from Virginia is the king of the cage slash CES bantamweight champion, Tony Gravely. What's going on, Tony?
Doing great, sir. How about yourself?
Good, good, man. You're gonna get your big exposure on ESPN coming up soon. Tell me something about yourself that most people don't know.
I guess it would be. I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like by now a lot. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of people know me. I've done a couple um, interviews, and people follow me. But I guess could be that I'm just a laid back guy. I feel like a lot of fighters. I'm probably the farthest from the most typical fighter, just because when I'm not fighting, I'm usually working with kids, and I'm either like playing games, playing tag, dodgeball with kids, things like that. So I guess that's probably something that a lot of people, I guess, wouldn't know. Seeing a fight. Um, I guess in general, people think that a lot of fighters are just kind of like meatheads, unless you talk to them. I'd say I'm probably the farthest from it, just because I'm not really intimidating. Um, I'm just really laid back.
Playing with kids, playing tag, just games in general must be a breath of fresh air in your daily life, right? Since you do have to go into the gym and train, and it's grueling sometimes, right?
It is. It's exactly. It's a good getaway from the hard work. I mean, not a getaway from the hard work, because the kids they make you work too when you're playing tag. But it's a good balance. It's good to you've got that. I guess fighting is pretty violent. You got that violence, and you got that continuous hard work, and you're exhausted. And then the kids, it's almost like the way I see it, it's almost like extra cardio playing with kids. It's fun, it's games, but I'm also being active. So, but it definitely is a breath of fresh air, and it helps me. Um, it also helps me maintain like a sense of, I guess it keeps me down to earth as far as how I need to compose myself. Because the more I've fought, the more I'm around kids, the more they start to understand what I do. And then as they get older, they start to watch me fight, and they watch my interviews, and they watch me do things. So I have to make sure that I hold myself to a higher standard. I can't be having a bad attitude, just doing things that people wouldn't want their children to see. So um, above having that break to be a big kid, also it helps me um, be a better person, a better leader overall.
I see that your father is or was, a Taekwondo master instructor. How much of that do you implement into your overall game?
Right now, it's last time I did Taekwondo was probably sixth grade. Um, I started Taekwondo when I was maybe like 3 or 4 years old, probably as soon as I could walk. And I did that a long time until I started wrestling in sixth grade. And I haven't really done it. But, as far as kicks, punches, and all that stuff, I think one thing that people don't quite know is I've got pretty good kicks. I don't throw a ton of kicks, but I know how to properly throw kicks. So as far as the kicks go, I think that's definitely helped a lot. How the proper way to throw kicks, and there's all kinds of ways to throw kicks. There's not really a wrong way to throw a kick, but there's all kinds of ways, and I think it's helped me be more diverse in the way that I throw kicks. But it's definitely been, that in general, that upbringing is what's brought me into MMA. I've watched um, a lot, tons of martial arts movies, anything fight related. I grew up. That's what I watched. What we watched all the time was fight stuff, fight movies, a lot of fight scenes, any action movie with fight scene, and it's helped. I guess help mold me into the person I am, and give me that love for martial arts and mixed martial arts.
You have more than 20 fights, you've had a lot of success, but you also had a few roadblocks throughout your career so far. Which fight or moment do you believe was the turning point for you to put you where you're at right now?
I think I had two turning points. There was one point where um, I had come off. I think it was I had lost three of my last four fights, and this was probably maybe my second or third King of the Cage fight, and I think I was 8-4 at the time, maybe. And it was so frustrating because I put so much into it, and to not get what you feel like you've put into it, to not get it back, it hurts. And I fight. I've been training full time since about 2016, beginning of 2016. So to put so much into it and to have like everything that I do is fight related, and to not get what I want, it hurts. It hurts. You're like, man, do I need to do something else? Is this not for me? And then the one point, so then I guess that was my third King of the Cage fight, maybe. I won, and that win was like, all right, maybe I need to stick with it. It was one of those things where it felt so much different than any other win, and it was just super emotional for me. And that started a new win streak for me. So I think I had won maybe five, and then I lost another for King of the Cage. The first time I challenged for the title, I lost that one, and that one hurt a lot too. It was the first time, it was my first title fight for King of the Cage, and King of the Cage, that was another sentimental thing for me because my dad and I, we both watched King of the Cage growing up. This was back when King of the Cage and the UFC and Pride were like all of the biggest promotions. So growing up watching that, and to finally get that opportunity to fight for that title was just really, it meant a lot for me. And losing, I lost again, and it was like, man, it 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 really hit me hard. And it was one of those things where, you know what, should I quit? It's another thing. Usually, like when you lose, and I guess when they hurt really bad, it either does two things. It's going to make you quit, or it's going to make you dig even deeper until you get what you want. And that was my last loss. I think that was uh, it was last year, but I've had so many fights since then. I just uh, got back in there, kept going, and now that loss that seemed like it's so far away. I mean, it was only, I guess it was a little over a year ago, but it seems like it's so far away because I had so many fights between now and then. It's almost like not erased it because I know what that feels like, and I'll never forget how that loss felt. But it almost pushes it in the back of other people's heads, that it was so recent. Um, well, it's not very recent, but you get what I mean.
Mhm.
Um, but that one really hurt, and that kind of kickstarted a new thing for me. And now I'm heading in the right direction, and I'm happy with how things have been going for me.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of guys out there that have winning streaks and they go into the UFC undefeated and then they lose and they never recapture that glory again. It's almost like you need to have those speed bumps to prepare you because when you get to the highest level, you're gonna lose. It's this sport. You have to lose. You know what I mean, to become better. And you already went through all of that, so I think you probably better prepared when you do get to the UFC.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen a lot of fighters, like you said, they're undefeated. Maybe they haven't fought really tough competition, or they're just used to blowing through people, not used to adversity, not used to having to lose a round and come back, or lose two rounds and have to get a finish, things like that. And I think I feel like I've taken one of the longest, hardest roads to get to this point, and I've had bumps, and I have five losses, but also have 18 wins. So I've, although I've only been fighting professionally for, um, say, let's see, it's only been maybe almost for no 3.5 years. I think like 3.5 years or so. But I've had 20 something fights. So just the time that I've put in over that course of time, as far as fighting the fights, it gives me an advantage as well. But I've taken dings, taken losses. I've won, but I've faced a lot of adversity, and I've been tested. I've taken tough fights. I haven't turned down any fights, and I've fought anybody that they put in front of me. So I feel like I'm ready for the opportunity to. to be in the UFC, and I'm ready. I'm ready for tough fights. That's what I'm looking for, and I hope this fight coming up is the toughest fight that I've ever had. Tough fights are only going to make me better. It's only going to make me tougher, and it's only going to show um, what I know that I believe in myself. It's gonna show it, and other people are gonna see it.
Speaking of your next fight, you're heading to Vegas for the Contender series on August 13th. You're facing Ray Rodriguez. Is he a name you were familiar with before you got the contract?
I seen one of his fights for LFA one time. I record all the pretty much every fight that's on TV, and I'll watch them. I just like watching fights. I'm sure every fighter, is a should be a student of the sport. I watch everybody, all levels, because there's always something you pick up. But I think I'd seen one of his fights before for LFA, but I hadn't really when I watch fights, I don't necessarily dig into watching somebody unless like I know I'm fighting them. But I'd seen him before, and I'd heard of his name before, but not like in depth before this.
So you must have got in depth, once you got the contract. What is your opinion of his skill set?
I think that he's definitely tough. I mean, we wouldn't be fighting like a Tinder series if he wasn't tough or people didn't think he was tough. Um, I know that he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's got some pretty good striking. I think that he is the type of fighter where most of his jiu-jitsu is probably the best on the top. I would say, judging by at least most of his fights, the ones that I've seen. Um, and I I'm I'd say on the ground I'm always on the top. Most of the time I'm on the top. I haven't spent a lot of time on the bottom. If I'm on the bottom, I usually try to get up pretty quick, um, just because it's hard to win on the bottom. But um, I feel like stylistically, um, well, honestly, I feel like stylistically, my style is tough for a lot of people. I've got really good cardio. If anything, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be in shape, and I'm going to push, push, push from start to finish. And I think my pressure, along with my wrestling, is going to make it hard for him. For one, not to be on top where he's most comfortable on the ground, and for two, um, just hard for him to withstand pressure for as long as it takes. But overall, I hope it's really tough. Like I said, I hope it's the toughest fight I've ever had, because I want it to push me. And I want to grow as a fighter and as a person. So that's what I'm training and expecting it to be the toughest fight I've ever had.
Yeah, it seems like Dana White, he likes those tough fights. And then somebody getting the finish at the end. Last week, you saw Alon Cruz versus Steven Nguyen. They were going at it for like 3 rounds. And then at the end, he just hit that flying knee. That was #1 on SportsCenter. That's crazy, right?
That is crazy. It's crazy to see how, at least how much, especially how much, like MMA has evolved and how it's on Sports Center now. And back in the day, like I said, when I was like younger watching it, it was almost like taboo. It's like nobody wanted to see it. It was like human cockfighting. Nobody wanted. But it's super cool to see that it's getting not so much a bad rep anymore. It's a sport, but it also, to me, I don't see it as a sport. I see it's a lifestyle. It's something that I take very personal. It's not just, if I lost a game of basketball, it'd be whatever. But you lose a fight, it's something that you put everything into. You change your lifestyle to adapt to this one thing, and you don't get it. It's a little different, but it's really cool to see. Not only the sport adapt, but it's cool to see. Um, I enjoy watching the fights because I like seeing other people that are as passionate as I am get their contracts, and it makes me feel really good. And I'm like, man, I can't wait to see what that feels like. So I'm really happy for those guys.
Do you have a chip on your shoulder going in, a little chip on your shoulder going into this fight? Since, a lot of people believe that you should have been signed directly to the UFC. And, this is kind of like your audition. Do you have a little feeling of that?
No, no, not really. I mean, realistically, I always go on a fight with a chip on my shoulder. I always have something to prove to myself, because I have high expectations for myself. But as far as the UFC goes, and I do feel like I could have been on a show already. But the way I see it is, if I could be on the show, then what's a Contender Series fight? Whatever it takes to get me in the door, I'm willing to do. This has been a dream for a long time, so if they want me to fight on the Contender Series, I'll do it, and I'll do my best to prove to them that they're, I should have been there, and they're going to be wondering why they haven't signed me sooner. So that's the goal when I go in there.
You go to Vegas, Dana White signs you. What do you bring to the bantamweight division that, does not exist currently?
Um, you know, I feel like there's a lot in the bantamweight division right now. I think, as far as me personally, it's more than just fighting. It's there are a lot of fighters that are good role models, and there's some that aren't. So I think, stylistically, as a fighter, I'm going to push the pace, and I'm going to, even though I wrestle a lot, it's not necessarily boring wrestling because I like to strike a lot from the top. So, and my striking is, people underestimate my striking itself. I can hit pretty hard. So, um, as far as what I bring to the table, I think, if anything, for me, it's just showing, not only UFC but people that they can reach their goals. I've had this dream, like I said, for since I was a child. So, for somebody to see a small town guy from Virginia like me, uh, actually stick with the goal and make it happen, I feel like, I hope that it pushes, other people to do the same thing. Other, not just, fighters, but people in general that have goals, that think that because they're from a small town or from this place, a small gym, that they can't do it. So, if anything, I hope that that's, some motivation to other people and inspiration is something I bring into the UFC.
All right, August 13th, Dana White's Contender Series, Las Vegas, Nevada. Thanks, Tony, for your time, and good luck to you and everything in your future.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate this platform and your support.